Are you someone who's fascinated by horror tales? Well, these stories are all fun and games until you are in the story. As scary as that sounds, some people have fallen victim to some chilling experiences. Are you ready to listen to their stories? In today's video, we will delve into 3 true terrifying horror stories. So, grab onto your seats because things are about to get scary. Watch this video till the end and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We had just started our sophomore year when there was a murder case at our school. The school's janitor was found dead in the boys' locker room. I don't know many details about the case, but my mom did. She was a junior high teacher at the same school. I did ask her about it, but she never answered my questions. 2 weeks later, rumors started going around at school that the guard had seen someone at the school at night. I got worried initially because I didn't have the heart for these spooky matters, and also because my mother used to stay late at school. Well, those rumors had caused a lot of chaos at the school, so the school board had set up a meeting which went on till late. That was our family movie night, so my father and I were waiting for my mom to get home. Just then, we received a call from my mom that her car was acting up and everyone else had already left, so she needed us to get her. Even though I was young back then, I could feel something was wrong. I didn't want to stay alone at home, so I asked my dad to take me with him. When we reached the school, I called Mom to come outside, but I heard a loud shriek as soon as she picked up the call. Panicking, I told my father that something was wrong. He immediately ran to the school. I had noticed that for some reason the night guard wasn't there. I was feeling anxious, so I ran behind him. We were both trying to find her when he heard her screaming from a classroom. When we reached there, I almost had a heart attack. From the glass window, I could see chairs flying in the room. My mother was stuck to the wall, and fear was evident in her eyes. It felt like she was talking to someone, begging. My dad tried to open the door, but it was locked from the inside. For the next 5 minutes, we had to watch helplessly as my mother cried in fear. We were pushing at the door with all our strength, but it didn't budge. And then it stopped. Everything just fell silent. My mother had fainted, and the door opened by itself. We knew the door was locked inside because we were trying to open it for so long. We ran inside, and my dad picked up my mom. But as we were running outside, I saw something still frightening me. I was right behind my dad. There was barely a 2-inch gap between us, but I saw someone in that gap. His face was weirdly horrifying, and his eyes, it felt like his eyes were bleeding. Before I could even react, it disappeared. At that time, I could not even call out to my dad. He was already running ahead holding my mother, so I just followed them. We got to the hospital and had my mother checked. When she woke up, she was literally shivering in fear, but she remembered nothing. The last thing she could think of was calling my dad in the parking lot. For the entire month following that incident, my mother was constantly sick. She was too scared to return to that school, even though she didn't remember the details. We had to move towns, and I had to go to a new school because, to be honest, I didn't have the guts to go back to the school either. I never grew up in a healthy household. It was always too loud to be peaceful. Around 2 years ago, during my exams, the situation at home worsened. So I would go to the library to study. Our town didn't have a library, but since studying at home wasn't an option, I would go to the city next to ours. Usually, my brother would walk me to the subway station, and I would take the subway there. And then, at night, I would ask him to pick me up from the station on his way home. On that day, I was way too focused on studying. I didn't even realize how much time had passed. And my dead phone wasn't much help either. After taking the last subway back to the town, I decided just to walk back alone since the walk was just 15 minutes long. As I was walking, I felt someone following me, but upon turning, I didn't find anyone. But to my surprise, a lady was ahead of me when I turned back. I was taken aback because just a second ago, no one was on the road besides me. But a part of me was so relaxed that I didn't have to walk alone anymore. I tried to walk behind her as silently as possible, as I didn't want her attention on me. As we continued walking, I noticed blood drops behind her footsteps, as if she was heavily bleeding. I called out to her but got no response, so I spoke a little louder this time, and she stopped. She slowly started to turn around, and I felt my heart stop when she turned completely. She had this sinister smile on her face, and eyes, her eyes were bleeding, like she was crying, but with blood. I felt my soul leaving my body, and at that moment, I just started running without thinking. I knew my way home from within the streets, so I ran without a break. I kept looking back. She was nowhere to be found, but I didn't want to stop. I reached home, and just as I was about to shut the door, I saw her again, right outside my house with the same creepy smile. At that moment, I just froze. I didn't expect her to find me in my own home. I told my brother about this entire thing. It's been 2 years since that incident, but my brother has found me on the porch at night a few times, and I was smiling in a very creepy way. Perhaps a smile I've seen. I used to work in a hospital where patients were tagged with colored bands. The bands differed depending on the departments, but one band was common for all, the red one, which was for deceased patients. I was on night duty one day, and we needed supplies from the basement. Everyone else was busy, so I decided to get the supplies. So I headed to the elevator, and when the elevator doors opened, a patient called out to me, asking me to hold the doors. I smiled at the patient before pressing the number for the basement. The elevator finally reached the basement, and the doors opened. I grabbed the supplies and came back to the elevator. To my surprise, the patient was still in the elevator when the doors opened. I didn't want to intrude, so I didn't ask anything. As the door was closing, a man called out my name and asked me to hold the door. It felt like a déjà vu of sorts. But as the man was limping towards the elevator, I saw his face clearly and remembered something. In a panic, I hurriedly slammed the elevator button to close. My heart was pounding as we started going back up. The patient asked me why I did that. He was trying to use the lift. I didn't answer the patient because I didn't want to scare them. But when I got to my floor, I noticed a very weird smile on the patient's face. I went to the doctor's lounge and told my colleagues about what had just happened. I told them that the patient had a red band and was dead, and I was sure about that since I assisted in the surgery when he died. I was pretty shaken, but it wasn't a new thing for me. We have experienced a lot of weird stuff during night shifts, although this one tops the list. For some reason, the patient from the lift couldn't leave my mind, so I checked the computer and there was no record of him. I even asked around about him, but no one had seen someone like that. I never saw him after that day, but something tells me that he knew about the deceased patient. Weren't these horrifying? Have you ever experienced anything like this? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See ya!